Billionaire discovers his humble employee feeding 50 disabled souls. What happened next was incredible. Mark Henderson stood in his sleek, glass office, the sprawling skyline of Chicago shimmering behind him. The city was alive, but he felt nothing, trapped in an empire built on numbers and relentless ambition. Despite his billionaire status, a hollow ache gnawed at him, shadowed by a constant fear of inadequacy. What did it mean to be successful when every deal felt like a hollow victory? He often dismissed the small minds around him, but the truth was, he was just as lost as they were, only more afraid to admit it. When the opportunity arose to sponsor a community outreach program, Mark shrugged it off as just another business move. It was supposed to enhance his company's image, but as he approached the bustling room filled with laughter and warmth, an unexpected unease settled in his stomach. This wasn't his world. His polished facade began to fray, revealing an unfamiliar vulnerability. And then, he saw her, Lucy. She was wrapping her arms around individuals who were often overlooked, feeding them and giving them something more than just food. Suddenly, Mark felt the looming contrast of his insulated life. "Are you okay, sir?" A voice interrupted his thoughts as he continued to watch her. It was his assistant, reminding him of the agenda. Yet all he could think about was how he had never immersed himself in the lives of those he purported to help. His heart raced at the notion that Lucy represented everything he had failed to acknowledge. Every dollar earned had come at the expense of genuine human connection and uncomfortable realization. The initial spark of admiration twisted into apprehension as he approached her. Behind the facade of altruism, he calculated potential funding proposals with corporate efficiency. Could this grant revitalize his reputation? "I'd like to help," he began, confidence in his voice, yet longing for more than just a transaction. But when Lucy rejected his offer, sadness flickering across her face, he felt the weight of his own superficiality crash down around him. How could a mere sponsorship be seen as genuine when stripped of emotional depth? Before he could comprehend it fully, unsettling knowledge struck him. Lucy cared for his estranged grandmother. The shock reverberated through his mind, creating an overwhelming sense of urgency. Beneath the layers of ego and corporate strategy, a long-buried desire to redefine his purpose ignited. Mark faced the dizzying consequences of his selfish choices. Could he bridge the gap between wealth and meaning? The notion gnawed at him, igniting an inner turmoil he thought he had vanquished long ago. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mark's thoughts spiraled. Was he willing to transform his entire perspective on life and money? As he leaned over the table cluttered with plans and numbers, each piece felt heavier, suffocating him with doubt. Would redirecting his wealth toward Lucy's mission be a step toward real connection, or just another ploy for self-justification? The weight of responsibility crushed down on him, growing more unbearable with each moment he spent absorbing Lucy's heart-led reality. As Mark's chest tightened with increasing anguish, he felt like a man standing at the edge of an abyss, gazing into the murky waters. All he had known trembled under the scrutiny of a choice that loomed ever larger, the fear of judgment, the remorse for past actions clawing at him. Could he break through the glass confines of his existence, or would he remain captive to his past? The tension sharpened, driving him toward uncertain change, but just as he leaned in toward that leap, the shadows of his old self flickered ominously, threatening to pull him back into the void. In the ensuing days, Mark grappled with profound disquiet that refused to wane. Each confrontation with the reality of his existence loomed larger, reflecting in the mirrors of his office, the glass showcasing not just the Chicago skyline, but the jagged edges of his life. He felt trapped in a gilded cage, a powerful figure yet utterly disconnected from what truly mattered. The unresolved moment with Lucy lingered, shades of vulnerability painting over the granite walls he had so carefully erected. What began as a fleeting glance at his employees milling about the bustling streets below turned into a keen observation of the fragility of human connections. The urgency within him to change was eclipsed by apprehension. How could he bridge this glaring chasm? Wasn't he perpetually tethered to that unforgiving world of wealth and ambition? He sat in his office one afternoon, numbers and spreadsheets spread across his desk, but the figures blurred together, overshadowed by the more vibrant images of the peeling paint on the community building he had recoiled from. As he attempted to focus, thoughts of Lucy surfaced: her warmth, her laugh, the way she transformed the mundane into something radiant while helping those who had nothing. It filled him with a longing he had buried under layers of corporate ambition. Frustrated, Mark pushed back from his desk, thinking of how many moments he had wasted chasing profits instead of purpose. The realization was suffocating. He picked up the phone, hesitating over the number he could call to reconnect. His grandmother, whom he had all but forgotten, was like a distant echo, the very connection he had severed due to a misguided vendetta against his family history. That thought struck him with cutting clarity. Much like Lucy with the outreach, he realized he had left behind his own humanity. He had been so consumed by success that he had shunned the very foundation of it, relationships. Every acquisition, every deal that had inflated his bank account chipped away at his own soul. Now, he was at a crossroads, weighing a decision that would transform his life. Mark's resolve solidified as he grabbed his jacket and exited the tower. He needed to confront his estranged grandmother, not just to reconnect but to understand her life, and in doing so, perhaps learn more about his own, including how he could contribute to Lucy's mission. The chill of the late afternoon air hit him as he stepped onto the street, the city no longer an impenetrable fortress but a maze filled with opportunities to engage with those he looked down upon. Heading to the care facility where his grandmother stayed, every step felt monumental, the echoes of uncertainty pressing on him. How would she react? What if she resented him for the years lost? Would Lucy be receptive if he genuinely sought to help? Doubts clouded his mind, but a glimmer of hope flickered within him, a vision of what it could mean to embrace vulnerability instead of shunning it. Arriving at the facility, trembling with a mix of fear and anticipatory excitement, Mark hovered at the entrance. A simple door stood between his past and any chance of redemption. As he pushed it open, the unfamiliar scent of antiseptic mingled with the unmistakable warmth of caring souls. Would this be a step toward reclaiming his identity, or a final plunge into despair? Mark stepped inside, heart racing, ready to confront not just his grandmother, but the depths of his own existence, facing once more the choice that would either pull him back into the abyss or lead him toward a dangerously new beginning. As Mark stepped into the brightly lit hallway of the care facility, the reality of his surroundings began to devour him. The noise of low conversations and the echo of wheelchairs seemed to rebuke his self-importance. Each step toward the main lounge was a struggle against the weight of his past decisions. Once a titan of industry, he now felt like a mere spectator in the lives of those around him, faces lined with experience and wisdom untouched by wealth. The sight of his grandmother seated in a well-worn armchair shook him. Time had etched deeper lines into her skin, her frail form a stark contrast to the vibrant memory he had of her in his childhood. Mark hesitated, the flood of memories assaulting him, her laughter, the stories of resilience against hardship. They had not come to an abrupt end, he had chosen to close that chapter of his life. The confrontation he sought felt monumental, not just against her, but against the very man he had become. Mark. Her voice was fragile but steady, as though she'd always known he would return. He felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "Hi, Grandma," he managed, stepping closer. She studied him, her eyes sharp despite their age. "You've changed. Or have you just forgotten where you came from?" The words landed heavy against his chest. She had a way of piercing through the layers of pretense he had carefully constructed. I drifted away," he confessed, the unease stirring within him. "I forgot who mattered." "Money won't fill that void, dear," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "You've always had a heart, but you've chosen to pick it apart piece by piece. Why are you here now?" The question hung between them. Suddenly, Mark was face to face with the reality of who he had become, a man chasing shadows while neglecting the very core of his humanity. "I need to make things right," he breathed out, before the dam broke with an overwhelming rush of emotions. It was not just about her, it was about redeeming himself from a life devoid of meaning. His grandmother reached for his hand, a gesture simple yet profound. "Then tell me what you want to do. Are you ready to confront your past and serve the present?" He wrestled with her words. The confrontation he sought with himself loomed larger than he could have fathomed. Would Lucy accept his help? Could he genuinely provide something of value to those he had previously ignored? "I want to help to understand," Mark replied, feeling a flicker of determination replace his anxiety. Perhaps this was a new path, a way to reclaim the human connections he had abandoned. "Then you must start small. Join me," she implied with a meaningful look. "Every week, I volunteer to help with the activities here. It's a way to give back. You could learn so much." A rush of apprehension washed over him. Volunteering meant opening himself up, tearing down the very walls he thought protected him. But as he observed the smiles exchanged between residents and caregivers, a stirring within him urged him to take that leap. I'll do it, he declared, both to her and to himself. As the hours stretched on, they spoke not just of memories but of dreams left unfulfilled. With each story shared, Mark felt the contours of his future shifting. He was linking the fragments of a life he had neglected and, for the first time in years, he envisioned a purpose beyond himself, yet, the shadows of uncertainty followed him. What awaited him in the outreach with Lucy? Would he find a way to merge the worlds he had fought to keep apart? The conversation drifted to thoughts of the future, but a persistent voice in his mind reminded him of uncharted territories ahead. Upon leaving the facility, Mark's resolve solidified, a burgeoning desire to align purpose with action surged within him. He had embraced a new chapter, but would he have the courage to face the emerging challenges awaiting him? The balance between risking vulnerability and pursuing genuine connection loomed as he prepared for the next encounter with Lucy, and the potential for transformation beckoned on the horizon. Mark's first day volunteering transformed his cautious resolve into an unexpected rush of emotions. Arriving at the facility, he felt a mix of nervousness and anticipation. He avoided eye contact with the other volunteers, fearing their judgment as he navigated his way to his grandmother's usual post. The thought that he, once a figure of authority, now stood on uncertain ground bubbled beneath his skin. "Welcome, Mark." His grandmother's cheerful voice cut through his self-doubt. "You're just in time." She gestured to a table, scattered with colorful supplies for an arts and crafts session. The sight of the elderly residents slowly gathering, their faces lighting up at the prospect of creation, stirred something in him. It was an expression of joy he hadn't experienced in years, overshadowed by the boardrooms and the relentless grind of business. Tentatively, he knelt beside a woman named Clara. Her hands trembled as she struggled to hold a paintbrush. "Need a hand?" he offered, the words escaping his lips before he could fully process the implications. Clara's eyes sparkled with gratitude. "Yes, dear. I'd love to paint some flowers," she said, a childlike enthusiasm reverberating in her voice. As he helped guide her hand, an unusual warmth flooded his chest. Mark found himself smiling alongside her, an unfamiliar sensation intertwining with the gravity of his admissions earlier. This was meaningful, more so than anything he had achieved in the corporate world. The session progressed, and with each interaction, he began to dismantle the towering walls he had shielded himself with. He exchanged stories with the residents, and their laughter wrapped around him like a warm blanket. Every shared moment chipped away at his emotional distance. He was no longer just Mark the billionaire, he was Mark, a man connected to others through shared experiences, shifting his identity gradually from self-importance to simple authenticity. During a break, as they sipped coffee, his grandmother voiced her observations. "You're beginning to see the world through their eyes, aren't you?" He couldn't deny it. Conversations flowed naturally, compelling him to reflect even deeper. "I never realized how much I missed this," he admitted quietly. "There is a richness here that eludes the office. Life isn't just about success or money," she said knowingly. "It's about the moments we create with others." As the day concluded, he felt a wave of fulfillment wash over him. However, as he drove home, a nagging question surfaced that clouded his newfound clarity: could he apply this experience outside the facility? Most notably, what would Lucy think of this new direction? Was he ready to confront the ambitious woman who once viewed him only as a means to an end? Would she understand this shift in him, or would she see him as out of touch and pretentious? The possibility of rejection tightened the knot in his stomach. Determined to approach her, he crafted an outline in his mind of how he could share this transformative experience with her. Would she see the value in the lessons he was beginning to learn, or would she dismiss it as a fleeting phase? The answer remained elusive, but a spark ignited within him, urging him toward this pivotal conversation. As he pulled into his driveway, Mark steeled himself for an encounter with Lucy that could change everything. The notion of vulnerability lingered at the forefront of his thoughts, but now it felt different, inviting. However, he couldn't shake the feeling that what awaited him with Lucy might not only test his resolve to continue this journey but also challenge the very foundation of his relationship with her. He inhaled deeply, the threshold of his home looming as both a solace and a battleground. Would they find common ground, or would his newly emerged self be met with misunderstanding? The moment was beckoning, and his heart raced. Would he muster the courage to reveal the man he was becoming, facing Lucy not just as a partner, but as a vital link to this new life unfolding before him? Mark stepped inside his home, the familiar sights oddly sufficient yet alien after the enriching day he had spent at the facility. For years, he had defined himself by his professional success, but now a whirlpool of uncertainty and potential surrounded him. How would this new perspective resonate with Lucy? He rehearsed the words in his mind, anticipating her reactions, but the anxiety snaked through him, tightening his resolve. He summoned her to join him in the living room, his sanctuary, now transformed into a space of expected vulnerability. Each tick of the clock seemed to echo louder as he waited, the weight of his decision hanging heavily in the air. Lucy entered, her presence commanding yet inviting. "What is up, Mark?" she asked, her head tilting slightly, her eyes scanning his expression, searching for clues. "Let us talk," he replied with an edge of uncertainty, gesturing for her to sit. The sofa felt more like a confessional than a simple piece of furniture in that moment. "I've been volunteering," he began, the words spilling out quicker than he intended. He watched her reaction, the initial flicker of intrigue quickly morphed into a spark of skepticism. "Volunteering?" She raised an eyebrow, leaning back against the cushions. "Since when?" He swallowed hard, stirring the courage inside him. "Today was my first day, and it was different. The conversations, the stories, I saw another side of life that I've neglected for too long." "Mark, you've never shown interest in that side before. What changed?" Her tone was sharp, not questioning his sincerity but rather probing the motivations behind this sudden shift. He deliberated for a moment, realizing that honesty was his only option. "I feel like I've been conditioned to value status, wealth, and power." But today his voice softened. "Today I saw joy, pure joy cultivated in the simplest of interactions among the residents. It made me rethink everything." As he spoke, he noticed Lucy's features soften, yet doubt still lingered in her eyes. "You've always had a soft spot, Mark. Why do you think this matters now? Do you really believe you can change?" The implication of her doubt pierced like a physical blow. "It's not about changing who I am." His heart thudded loudly in his chest. "It's about changing how I see the world, how I connect with people. I want to end this relentless chase for something that doesn't fulfill me." Lucy paused, processing his words. He sensed the gears shifting within her. Yet the silence wasn't uncomfortable, it was filled with an electric anticipation. Would she reject this side of him, just as he feared, or would she embrace it? "What about your career? Your empire?" she finally asked, her eyes searching his for reassurance. "I'm not giving it up. I still want to build my business, but not at the cost of my humanity." "There must be a balance," he replied, frustration creeping into his tone. Was she truly unable to see the growth within him? "The Mark I know wouldn't entertain such thoughts," she countered. "What would the board think if you presented this side of yourself?" But there was a new resolve burning in his chest. "They might be surprised, but maybe I'm tired of living for their approval." The urgency in his voice shattered the hesitation. "I want to make a difference, Lucy. Something bigger than just profits. Don't you see?" Her gaze softened, and Mark felt a hint of hope flicker. He was changing, he was becoming the man he wanted to be. But would she meet him halfway, or would the fear of his evolved identity be too much to bear? She looked away, her thoughts hidden from him. "Mark, this is a lot to process. Can you give me some time?" Time. That simple request left him in turmoil. An idea blossomed that this might not only be about him making a change, but also about them redefining their relationship. "Of course," he replied, masking his disappointment. "I'll give you the space you need. Just know that I'm serious about this transformation." Time ticked on, yet he felt more uncertain than ever. Would she be able to adjust her perception of him? And if so, at what cost? To their shared vision of success. As he stepped back, the room echoed with unresolved questions. He realized his path toward authenticity was only just beginning, and what awaited him alongside Lucy might reshape not only his future but the very essence of their partnership. Tomorrow, he would need to return to the facility. Would the connections he made there further influence his evolution, or would doubt hold him back again? The answer loomed, vibrant with possibility. Mark awoke the next morning, the sunlight slicing through the blinds, illuminating particles of dust dancing whimsically in the air. The room felt different. Gone were the walls lined with accolades that once defined his success, now, they seemed oppressive, reminders of a life that felt increasingly hollow. He rose, contemplating how to carry the insights of yesterday into the world outside his door. As he got ready for the facility, his mind swirled with possibilities. He wondered if his experience would deepen in meaning, perhaps revealing additional layers of understanding that he had yet to grasp. With each repetition of the morning routine, he pondered how these interactions would reshape his perceptions, and how they might impact his approach to both business and his relationship with Lucy. Upon arriving, he was immediately met by the atmosphere that felt almost electric. The residents had a unique presence, their spirits lively and undeterred by the constraints life had imposed upon them. Mark could already sense something shifting within him as he greeted them, his once steely resolve beginning to soften. During the session, Mark sat beside an elderly gentleman named Harold, who gleefully shared stories of yesteryear's adventures of love, loss, and laughter that transcended the mundanity he'd once perceived as essential. Each word enriched Mark, striking chords he hadn't engaged in years. There was authenticity in Harold's voice, a profound grounding that Mark missed in boardroom chatter. A young volunteer named Mia caught his eye, exuding warmth as she patiently listened to each resident. Mark noticed how she interacted, not as a caretaker above them, but as a friend, a quality he admired. It struck him not just the joy of the residents in sharing their lives, but also the sense of empowerment they exhibited in reclaiming their stories. Mark wanted to capture that essence and weave it into his own narrative, one that wasn't just about profitability but about impact. As the hours passed, he engaged more deeply. When he witnessed a resident express their dream of creating a poetry book, Mark felt a rush of motivation. Could he help that dream materialize, using his resources to foster creativity and give it a platform? He had always dealt with tangible numbers, but now he desired to convert abstraction into reality, one personal story at a time. Yet doubt crept in, whispering that he was stepping far out of his territory. What did he know about publishing poetry? The tension crackled within him, a push and pull between his corporate identity and this new budding hope. Would he have the courage to create something meaningful without reverting to performance-driven metrics? By the end of the day, an undercurrent of urgency grew within Mark. He returned to his office, ready to shift the focus of his latest project. The idea of a community initiative began forming, a literary space where the residents could share their creativity openly. He envisioned hosting workshops where they could nurture aspiration. But as he drafted plans, a harmful thought seeped into his mind: what would Lucy think? Would she encourage him, or chastise his diversion from the traditional path? Tension brewed, and he found himself wrestling with the duality of supporting his newfound aspirations and maintaining the safety of their established partnership. As he stared at the papers littering his desk, he shivered at the thought of challenging the status quo. The clock ticked, pressing time against his decisions, each second amplifying the weight on his shoulders. Would he go through with this plan? Standing at the crossroads of transformation, Mark realized he faced an imminent choice: to embrace the surge of creativity and authenticity joined alongside fear of rejection, or to retreat back into the comfort of his old self. Tomorrow, he would have to confront not only his concerns about Lucy's acceptance but also the board's reaction. Would they stifle or support his vision for a new kind of business? The answers beckoned, lining the periphery like shadows poised to leap into the light. Mark awoke the next morning, an unfamiliar resolve settling like armor against the uncertainties that had once dominated his thoughts. He glanced around his office, cluttered with paperwork and remnants of corporate culture, and felt a flicker of hope. It was time to transform his environment, but first, he had to confront the dual forces awaiting him, Lucy and the board. As he ruminated about their potential reactions, a familiar dread coursed through him. What if Lucy viewed this initiative as yet another whimsical diversion from their carefully crafted life? He'd spent years climbing the corporate ladder. Would she interpret this pivot as a betrayal of sorts? Yet, the inspiration blossoming inside him would not be quelled. On the way to the facility, he replayed Harold's words in his mind, reinforcing that stories mattered, that they could touch lives beyond mere profitability. What if by helping others connect to their creativity, he could rediscover his own purpose? Arriving at the facility, Mark was greeted by the warmth of the residents. A young woman named Clara, with a sparkle in her eye, shared her own twist on poetry, infused with moments of joy and tenderness. Their faces radiated a collective determination that galvanized Mark, filling him with an urgency that propelled him into action. After the session, he approached Mia, the volunteer whose genuine approach resonated with him. "How do you connect with them so effortlessly?" he asked, trying to tap into her secret. "It's all about listening," she replied. "Everyone has a story worth telling. You just have to meet them where they are." That simple phrase reverberated as he pondered his own disconnectedness from authenticity, both personally and professionally. He had listened to stakeholders, clients, and employees, but had he truly engaged with people? The realization hit hard. Perhaps his rise to success had blinded him to the simple power of empathy. Fueled by this insight, he returned to his desk, magnets of doubt taunting him at every turn. His heart raced as he drafted a proposal for the initiative, a workshop aimed at fostering creativity and personal expression through writing. He gemmed the pages with his vision, the colors of veracity brightening mundane office white. But lurking beneath the excitement was the nagging concern about the board's response. Would they see value in an endeavor that strayed from traditional profitability metrics? He hesitated, pacing the office floor, preparing to introduce his idea at the upcoming board meeting. A whisper of self-doubt nudged him. What if the board viewed his passion project as frivolous? The stakes felt alarmingly high. He had crafted an identity steeped in the corporate ladder, but would he jeopardize it now? What if they shoveled his ambitions into the pit of not our priority? As each second ticked by, his breathing quickened. He needed to convince not just the board, but himself. This was about creating space for others to share their truths. He needed his colleagues to see that profitability could coexist with purpose. Could he ignite that fire in the boardroom? Mark found himself inching toward clarity, the frenetic energy shifting into focus as determination sealed the edges of fear. He resolved to own his narrative, to present not merely a business initiative but a movement towards authenticity. But a lingering question gnawed at him: would this newfound fire illuminate the pathway for Lucy, or would it cast shadows of doubt on their shared dreams? The weight of his ambitions loomed as he rehearsed the conversation with Lucy and the board in his mind. The time had come to face the potential backlash of his shift in identity, a test of whether he could remain true to his purpose heart in a world that demanded conformity. He clenched his fists in determination, preparing to step into the unknown. The meeting was set, the moment of truth emerging just beyond the horizon, where fear and promise entwined like shadows on a dimly lit path. As Mark stepped into the boardroom, a familiar sense of detachment washed over him. It was as if he had entered a parallel reality, where everyone else operated under the rules of corporate politics while he grappled with a newfound authenticity that felt foreign. The polished conference table gleamed under the fluorescent lights, each member of the board seated with an air of controlled skepticism. He inhaled deeply, recalling Clara's enthusiasm and Mia's advice. This was more than a presentation, it was an invitation to connect, to share stories not just in business terms, but from the heart. The clock ticked, amplifying his pulse with each passing second that drew him closer to the edge of vulnerability. Mark cleared his throat. "Thank you all for convening," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. He clicked through slides filled with charts and projections, setting the groundwork for his proposal. The graphics showcased the cost and projected user engagement of his workshop initiative, but something about the presentation felt hollow, disconnected from the vibrant energy he had felt at the facility. As the room sat in calculated silence, he could sense the doubt radiating from his colleagues. The board members' brows furrowed, their stoic expressions scrutinizing not just the data but the deeper implications of his ambition. "Mark, while we appreciate creativity, I'm afraid our resources might be better allocated to initiatives that guarantee profitability," one board member interjected, crossing his arms. Mark's heart sank, yet beneath the disappointment lay a spark of determination. "What if I told you that fostering creativity can drive profitability in ways we haven't fully explored?" He countered, feeling the words taking shape, fueled by the conviction he had gathered. "Investing in our people doesn't merely create happier employees, it can reinvigorate our brand and our bottom line." His hands moved almost instinctively, flipping through the slides. He spoke of Clara and the impact of writing on the residents, weaving personal anecdotes and statistics on enhanced workplace creativity derived from similar programs. There was an undeniable energy in his voice as he captured the essence of what he had learned: the power of listening, engaging, and allowing space for voices to flourish. But doubts from the board cut through his passion like sharp knives. "And if it fails? What then?" Another member shot back, the skepticism penetrating the walls he had tried to build around his growing enthusiasm. "What if we succeed?" Mark replied, matching the intensity, his breath tight with conviction. "What if we unlock innovation simply by giving people the opportunity to express themselves?" For a fleeting moment, Mark sensed a shift, a flicker of intrigue sparking in at least a couple of the board members. It was enough to push him further, igniting his core belief that personal resonance could shift the corporate landscape. As he concluded his presentation, he met the eyes of each board member, holding their gaze a fraction longer than necessary, searching for a flicker of connection in the stark faces. "Lucy and I have always believed in the power of purpose behind our work. Our initiative is about harmonizing that purpose with profitability." With that, he stepped down from the podium, reverberating with uncertainty and hope. As discussion erupted among the board members, Mark's gaze drifted toward the window, seeking clarity amidst the chaos of thoughts swirling inside him. He wanted to believe that he could bridge the gap between the corporate world he had so carefully crafted and the newly discovered essence of who he was meant to be. Then his phone buzzed a message from Lucy. The weight of anticipation washed over him, intertwining with the exhilaration of the meeting. "Can we talk? I heard what you want to do." Mark's pulse quickened. Might she share his vision, or was she already beginning to see the shadows in their carefully laid plans? He collected himself as the conversation in the boardroom grew more animated. And as he pondered on the words he would find to answer Lucy, he realized that an entirely new challenge loomed, not just the board as approval, but the journey back to reconnecting with the life and love they had built together. What would happen when his newfound passion met the reality of their shared dreams? Mark's mind raced as he stepped out of the boardroom, the weight of his presentation hanging heavily in the air. He felt exposed, as if he had stripped away layers of pretenses only to stand naked before judgment. The wall of skepticism from his colleagues was daunting, but there was something stirring within him, a quiet resilience that begged for expression. He glanced at his phone, Lucy's message sitting there like a beacon. Should he respond immediately, or was it better to let things settle? The prospect of discussing the workshop initiative filled him with equal parts hope and fear. What if she saw the cracks in his vision? Perhaps the discontent he felt in the boardroom was merely an echo of something deeper, a wavering confidence he needed to address, not just with them, but with Lucy. The hustle of the office faded as he made his way to his desk, the quiet space allowing for reflection. He remembered the weight of Clara's gratitude when he had listened to her stories about her struggles. That moment had shifted something within him, illuminating a path toward a more authentic leadership style. What would it look like to lead with vulnerability? The question lingered in his mind, fueling the internal conflict between the person he had been conditioned to be and the leader emerging from his growing self-awareness. He pulled out a notepad, scribbling down thoughts as they came. "Empowerment leads to innovation," he wrote, underlining it 3 times. He could envision the workshop model, not just as an engagement tool but as a catalyst for enduring cultural change within the company. If he was going to alter corporate perceptions, he would need to package this concept in a way that tugged at the heartstrings of the board members who still focus solely on the profit margins. But how? The challenge weighed on him. To navigate these discussions, he would need his image of a compassionate leader to resonate even more deeply within the corporate structure, a place where savage ambition often eclipsed humility. He felt a flicker of inspiration. What if his approach included testimonials from employees like Clara, not just statistics on output but real voices advocating for the initiative's value? This was about people, authenticity, connection, and growth, both personally and professionally. Feeling revitalized, Mark responded to Lucy's message, suggesting they meet for coffee where he could share not just his plans but the underlying philosophies he had been developing. As he waited for her reply, a moment of doubt crept in. What if Lucy didn't understand the direction he wanted to pursue? Would she support this shift toward a more humane leadership, or would she cling to the conventional paths both were accustomed to? He wrestled with these fears while moving through the day's tasks, each offering a gentle reminder that he was in a liminal space caught between what was expected of him and what he yearned to embrace. Once Lucy's message popped up, he took a deep breath and read her words, "Absolutely. Let us discuss your vision, maybe we can refine it together." Relief washed over him, but a twist of anxiety remained. It was one thing to theorize about change, it was another test entirely to execute it amid turbulence surrounding them. Stepping back from the desk, he glanced again out the window, the city pulsing with life beneath him. It was daunting, the thought of the journey ahead. As much as he wanted to embrace the pulse of a newfound passion, perhaps it would require more than a single conversation to interrogate the depths of the intertwined ambitions. As he prepared to meet Lucy, the stakes rose. Would she see his vision as potential or folly? The moment of truth lingered close, and Mark felt the tension of duality pressing upon him, 2 paths diverging, both calling for decisions that could reshape not only his career but the very essence of who he aspired to be. What would happen when they met, when he laid bare not just his ideas but his vulnerabilities? The choice was drawing near, and he could feel every heartbeat carrying him toward a pivotal confrontation. Mark stood at the entrance of the facility, the world beyond the glass doors bustling with familiar chaos, yet it felt different to him now. He understood that these walls were no longer a refuge for the person he once was, they had become the crucible for the man he aspired to become. His recent reflection sparked a resolve within him as he thought about the workshop, the stories of the residents, and the mission he was beginning to define. As he entered, Mark felt an inspiring wave of warmth wash over him. The vibrant energy of the community enveloped him, igniting a confidence that had long been dormant. He was here to connect, to listen, and to foster creativity among those who had so much to share. Today was more than just about volunteering, it was about building bridges. With Clara's laughter in his mind, he approached Harold, prepared to share the fundamental changes brewing within him. I see you've been busy, he remarked, noticing a stack of poetry scribbled down on the table. What's the theme today? Finding beauty in the ordinary, Harold replied, his eyes gleaming with hope. It's easier to find when you share it with others. Mark felt that profound truth resonate deep within him. This was the essence he needed to share with the board, translating passion into purpose. As the day unfolded, Mark facilitated conversations among residents hesitant to express themselves. He guided them through exercises designed not just to promote creativity, but to build confidence. Each smile elicited from the residents filled him with an undeniable sense of purpose. He wasn't merely a billionaire, he was a catalyst for change, a role he had long neglected. The moment of truth arrived when Mark found a quiet corner to reflect. He had spent weeks grappling with his relationship with Lucy, and this journey toward authenticity demanded to include her. He could no longer separate their lives, nor his newfound vision from their shared reality. It was time to champion this transformation within their partnership, showing her that past ambitions could coexist with newfound purpose. Later that evening, the table was set in his home, a beautiful display of simplicity. The delicious aroma of the meal wafted through as he prepared, echoing the warmth he had found in the facility. Lucy arrived, her expression shrouded with curiosity as she entered. What is all this? She asked, hinting at playfulness laced with skepticism. I wanted to share something significant, he replied, inviting her to sit. After our last conversation, I reflected on what matters more than success: creating meaningful connections. I want us to redefine our potential together. With determination, he laid out the vision for the workshop initiative. People like Clara have powerful stories. They're not merely residents, they're storytellers. Imagine if we facilitated their voices into something bigger, something the community could engage with. Lucy listened intently. You want to use your resources for creative expression. The weight of her skepticism hung in the air, but beneath it, he sensed her curiosity. Yes. Instead of profit margins dictating our actions, let us focus on value creation rooted in empathy and understanding. This isn't just a corporate move, it's a movement toward recognizing the human experience. Mark, she hesitated, her eyes narrowing as if weighing his words. This is a dramatic shift. You know how the board operates. Are you prepared for the backlash? Mark took a breath, confidence grounding his voice. Every challenge in this journey has led me back to my core. I've realized success is only fulfilling when it fosters connection. I need your support. Together, we can bridge the gap between commerce and compassion. The silence was thick, yet he saw a flicker of understanding deep in her gaze. I appreciate your vision, but we're in this together. I need to see that this isn't just a fleeting phase, she urged, her resolve mirroring his. Are you wholeheartedly committed to this change? Absolutely, Mark proclaimed, his voice steady with conviction. I'm not only doing this for me, I'm doing it for us. But it starts with genuine belief and direct action. We can redefine success together. Lucy's expression softened, searching for sincerity. Then let us present this idea to the board together. We owe it to them and ourselves to ignite this change with consciousness, not just charisma. Mark felt a wave of reassurance wash over him. Together then, he affirmed. We flourish together, or not at all. That night, as they prepared to unveil their vision, Mark felt a weight lift. He had not just found a purpose, he had woven it into the fabric of their partnership. Their ambitions would now intertwine, merging the narrative of corporate life with the compassion and humanity he had once overlooked. When they stood in front of the board the next day, side by side, their united presence spoke volumes. Mark had embraced his role as a leader in redefining their company's values. He was no longer just Mark, the billionaire, he was a steward of creativity fully alive in the intersecting worlds of business and personal significance. The transformation was palpable, filling the boardroom with a sense of possibility. Mark was ready, not just to reclaim his purpose but to inspire the people around him in an authentic way. Here, at this crossroads of ambition and soul, he finally discovered success in the fullness of connection, and that was the most compelling narrative. As they concluded their presentation, applause erupted, and Mark's heart swelled. There would always be challenges ahead, but now, with Lucy and a renewed sense of authenticity, he was equipped to face whatever came their way, united in their shared purpose. From that moment, everything shifted. Mark had not merely achieved recognition, he had evolved, becoming a man of solid confidence and genuine integrity. He was finally on the path he had yearned for, one where accomplishment and compassion harmonized in life as beautiful tapestry. This was the moment his new journey began, and the message echoed clear: the biggest achievements in life are found not just in the accolades but in heartfelt connections built along the way. You need to subscribe now to this channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, you know it makes a huge difference. Comment below your thoughts and theories about this inspiring ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Your support for stories of personal growth is invaluable.